The great chamber drifted through empty space between distant suns. Countless civilizations had worked together across centuries to create this colossal meeting place. Representatives from every corner of the galaxy assembled in a round hall so enormous that fog concealed the opposite walls. Different species occupied separate environmental chambers, each breathing unique atmospheres and existing at varying temperatures. Translation systems connected them all, converting thoughts into meanings everyone could grasp. Earth had become their topic of discussion. Ambassador Jakara from the Ventali Communion observed the proceedings with mounting worry. Her kind had devoted themselves to peaceful negotiation, and her 4 eyes could detect heat patterns revealing emotions across most alien forms. What those eyes witnessed now was pure disdain radiating from nearly every group present. 5 decades, roared Commander Thex from the crushed Dominion. His enormous body completely filled his containment pod. These warriors stood 3 meters high, their bodies covered in protective armor evolved on a world with crushing gravity. Half a century we've been waiting for these Earthlings to say something. 50 years without a single word. Agreement swept through the assembled delegates. The Seth representative, a being made of living crystal communicating through pulses of light, flashed contemptuous patterns. The Morvani group, small furry beings with 6 limbs each, made mocking chittering sounds. Their satellites picked up every broadcast we sent, High Chancellor Vex stated. This elder belonged to the Quinn species, founders of the Council thousands of years past. We confirmed their equipment captured all our communications. They're fully aware we're out here. They've simply decided not to acknowledge us. Jakara lifted one of her 4 hands. Maybe they require additional time. Their planet was fragmented when we initially reached out. Wars between nations, ecological destruction, governmental disorder. Perhaps they're unprepared for this. Commander Thex's laugh sounded like boulders grinding together. Unprepared or simply too backward to be relevant. I've seen what they broadcast. They're still using chemical propulsion. Chemical. My people abandoned such primitive methods 10,000 years back. Laughter erupted across the chamber. Even the typically reserved Quinn showed subtle amusement in their own way. I suggest we claim their territory. Thex pressed forward, his tone growing bolder. The third rock is worthless with those primates crawling over it, but their outer planets hold value. Gas giants ripe for mining, asteroid fields, frozen moons, perfect for resource extraction. Why let such abundance go to waste on creatures who can't escape their own planet's pull? Additional voices rose in agreement. The Crush were known warriors, always expanding their domain, yet even peaceable species nodded at this reasoning. Territory mattered across the stars, resources held value, dignity demanded recognition, and Earth had demonstrated none of these. Jakara felt her blood temperature dropping, her species' physical response to stress. She'd been studying humans intensively throughout the decades. Something about their refusal to respond felt calculated rather than cowardly. She'd analyzed their entertainment programs, their news cycles, their academic papers. Humans showed intelligence, perhaps too much intelligence. High Chancellor, she interrupted the noise. I strongly recommend caution. We understand very little about humanity's actual capability. We understand plenty, Thex shot back. They fight themselves using ballistic weaponry. They contaminate their own air. They squabble over imaginary boundaries on their world. They're younglings, Ambassador, reckless younglings who need instruction in how the galaxy actually functions. High Chancellor Vex raised a crystalline appendage, bringing instant quiet. The Quinn had built their authority through millennia of wisdom, and even the Crush acknowledged their power. This council shall vote, Vex declared. We grant Earth one additional standard cycle to answer our overture. Should they maintain their silence, we declare their solar territory open for claiming. Any member may stake their right, according to established procedures. The vote concluded swiftly with near unanimity. Only Jakara and 2 other groups objected. Humanity had 1 year remaining. After the chamber cleared, Jakara remained in her pod, studying the holographic projection of Earth's solar territory. It appeared insignificant and forgettable. 1 yellow star among countless billions. 1 blue world among endless trillions. Yet something troubled her thought. She accessed the historical records. 5 decades earlier, when the first Council probe reached Earth's system, humanity had barely begun touching their moon. Their tools were crude, their society was broken. Yet the probe's instruments had registered something else. Something subtle. Radio transmissions with mathematical precision. Satellites already circling their world. Nuclear arsenals demonstrating grasp of atomic principles. The humans were primitive, certainly, but they weren't foolish. Jakara switched to recent surveillance information. Earth's electromagnetic output hadn't diminished. If anything, the signals had grown more complex, more encrypted. The satellites surrounding their planet had multiplied significantly. Something else caught her attention in the data. Multiple probes had registered unusual energy readings in Earth's outer solar system over the previous decade. Though these had been dismissed as equipment glitches or natural occurrences, what if those readings were neither errors nor natural? Far below, buried deep within Colorado's mountains, Admiral Sarah Chen stood before a wall displaying multiple screens. Each showed different angles of the council chamber, captured by microscopic surveillance drones that had infiltrated years ago. She'd monitored every second of their debate. Officers and scientists surrounded her, working at their stations, tracking feeds from across known space. Humanity's intelligence apparatus had grown remarkably sophisticated through 5 decades of careful observation. "They've given us 12 months, General Yuki Tanaka noted, standing at Chen's side. "The crush won't hold back that long." Chen's smile never touched her eyes. "I'm aware, warriors like them lack restraint. Should we alert the fleet?" "The fleet's been prepared for 3 years, General, but ensure the Saturn facilities complete the final squadron. I want overwhelming superiority when our moment arrives." She turned back to the displays, watching alien delegates leave in their vessels, each one convinced of humanity's irrelevance. Let them maintain that belief. Let them plan their assault. Let them approach Earth's territory expecting defenseless prey. They'd discover reality soon enough. Silence, after all, wasn't defeat. Sometimes it was simply a predator holding perfectly still before striking. Dr. James Okonkwo floated in zero gravity, gazing through the viewport, as construction drones assembled the final components of humanity's crowning achievement. The vessel stretched 2 kilometers, its hull forged from alloys that hadn't existed 10 years prior. Weapon arrays lined its flanks, each housing technology reverse-engineered from alien blueprints, but refined through human ingenuity. "She's magnificent, isn't she?" A voice spoke behind him. Okonkwo turned to see General Yuki Tanaka drift through the observation deck's entrance. The general had aged considerably, her hair completely silver now, but her gaze remained razor-sharp. "The Indomitable," Okonkwo read the name painted across the hull. "Admiral Chen's personal command ship. Is she truly prepared? She'll need to." "Intelligence indicates the crush are mobilizing forces." Tanaka pulled herself to the window, magnetic boots locking her to the floor. "Hard to imagine we constructed all this without detection." Okonkwo chuckled softly. "Not entirely undetected now. We've got 347 capital vessels, 2,000 frigates, and 15,000 support ships scattered throughout the solar system. You can't hide that indefinitely. We concealed it long enough." The old scientist gazed out at the construction facilities surrounding. They floated in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, hidden among millions of ancient rocks. Humanity had claimed hundreds of asteroids, hollowed them into shells, and transformed them into manufacturing centers, shipyards, and laboratories. Here, far from Earth's surface, they'd built an empire in secret. It had begun simply enough. When the first alien transmission arrived 50 years earlier, Earth's governments had reacted with panic. Every scientist, every military commander, every political leader had grasped the same reality immediately. Humanity wasn't ready. They lagged centuries behind in technology, fractured by borders and conflicting ideologies, and utterly unprepared for a cosmos filled with advanced civilization. So they'd made a decision. They wouldn't respond. They wouldn't expose their vulnerability. Instead, they'd use the time to catch up. "Do you remember those early days?" Okonkwo asked. "The arguments?" Tanaka nodded. "I was just a captain then. I remember the heated debates in the half pushed for immediate contact. They assumed the aliens would assist us, transfer their knowledge, embrace us into the galactic family. Naive perhaps, but hopeful." Tanaka's expression grew distant. The other half recognized the truth. The aliens' message wasn't an invitation to equal standing. It was a summons. "Come join us and accept your position in our hierarchy. Become the newest, most vulnerable, poorest members of their organization." Okonkwo pulled up a holographic display showing Earth as it had appeared 5 decades back. A planet covered in lights, yes, but also covered in divisions. Nations that had spent centuries warring. Faiths that had waged crusades. Corporations that placed profit above survival. "The alien message transformed everything," he said softly. "It provided us a shared threat, or rather a shared challenge. The unification," Tanaka said. "History will question whether it was humanity's proudest achievement or our most desperate gamble. But they both understood the reality. Earth's governments had unified covertly, establishing an organization that operated above all nations. Resources had been redirected, scientific communities had merged, military forces had integrated, all in absolute secrecy, all toward a single objective: survive first contact with a galaxy that wouldn't respect the weak. Earth's greatest scientific minds had examined every transmission from the alien. They'd analyzed the technology visible in the footage, the physics suggested by faster-than-light travel, the energy readings from their vessels, and gradually, methodically, they'd begun to comprehend. We couldn't have achieved this without their arrogance, Okonkwo said. They transmitted information freely, never imagining we could comprehend it. They broadcast their positions, their capabilities, their internal politics. They handed us everything we needed to understand them, while we revealed nothing. Okonkwo recalled his own breakthrough, the moment that had changed everything. He'd been examining alien propulsion systems, trying to understand how they warped space-time to achieve faster-than-light travel. The alien methodology was elegant, but wasteful, demanding enormous amounts of energy. But what if you merged it with quantum tunneling? What if you approached the challenge not as bending space, but as creating temporary passages through it? The human technique was cruder, more violent in its application, but it demanded a fraction of the power. Human vessels could jump farther and faster than most alien ships. They'd transformed their late arrival to the galactic stage into an advantage. Throughout the solar system, similar breakthroughs had occurred. Human weapons specialists had examined alien plasma cannons and wondered, what if we accelerated the plasma particles even faster? Human shielding technology had started with alien force fields, but added multiple redundancies and adaptive systems. Human ship armor had incorporated alien materials, but arranged them in configurations inspired by Earth's own natural designs. Humanity hadn't copied the aliens. They'd learned from them and then innovate. The Kuiper stations are confirming full operational readiness, Tanaka said, checking her datapad. The fusion reactors are online. The jump gates are calibrated. Every vessel in the fleet is staffed and prepared. How many people understand the complete truth? Maybe 10 million. Scientists, engineers, military personnel, government officials. Everyone directly involved. Tanaka paused. The rest of Earth assumes we have a modest space program, a few satellites, some research stations, plans for a Mars colony eventually. They have no idea we've colonized half the solar system. Okonkwo felt the burden of that secret. Billions of humans living their lives completely unaware that their species had transformed itself. They went to work, raised families, worried about ordinary problems, while above them an entire civilization had been constructed in silence. Do you think we were justified keeping it secret? He asked. Tanaka considered the question carefully. If we'd told everyone the truth, there would have been panic, demands to make contact, protests, possibly civil war. Some nations would have attempted their own negotiations with the aliens. The unity we required would have collapsed. A comfortable lie versus a frightening truth. Not a lie, a delay. They'll know soon enough. Tanaka gestured toward the Indomitable. When that ship takes flight, when the human fleet reveals itself to the galaxy, everyone will know, Earth will know, the aliens will know, the era of humanity's silence concludes. Okonkwo watched another construction drone weld a final plate onto the ship's hull. Somewhere in the distance, a transport carrying supplies from the Ceres refineries fired its thrusters. A patrol craft marked with Earth's unified flag drifted past, its sensors sweeping the asteroid field for any sign of alien surveillance. Let them come, he said quietly. Let the crush arrive with their invasion force. Let them assume Earth is defenseless. They'll discover what humanity has become. Tanaka smiled grimly. We stayed silent for 5 decades. Not from fear, not from weakness. We stayed silent because we weren't ready to speak. And now we're ready to roar. Commander Thek stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Fist of Dominion, watching the blue planet grow larger on his view screen. Behind him 200 warships followed in perfect formation. The Crush invasion fleet had crossed 30 light-years in 3 weeks, and now Earth hung before them like ripe fruit waiting to be plucked. Pathetic, Thex muttered, studying the tactical display. They have satellites, yes, but ancient ones. Chemical propulsion, radio communication. They're insects pretending to be a civilization. His second-in-command, a younger Crush named Vorel, checked the sensors. The satellites are attempting to scan us, Commander. Their technology barely registers our ships. Let them look. Let them witness their doom approach. Thex bared his teeth in what his species considered a smile. Transmit a message to the planet. Inform the humans that the Crush Dominion claims this system. They have 1 of their hours to evacuate their orbital stations. After that we commence bombardment. The message transmitted. Thex expected panic, desperate pleas, perhaps surrender. Instead he received silence, the same infuriating silence the humans had maintained for 50 years. Commander, Vorel said, confusion in his voice. The human satellites are moving. Thex examined the tactical display. The primitive satellites that had been orbiting Earth were indeed moving, but not fleeing. They were positioning themselves between the Crush fleet and the planet. They think those toys can stop us. Thex laughed. Target the satellites. Destroy them. Plasma cannons charged across the Crush fleet. Targeting solutions locked. Fingers moved toward firing controls. Then space twisted. The sensors exploded with warnings. Energy signatures appeared across the solar system. Massive power readings that shouldn't exist. The tactical display lit up with new contact. Hundreds of them appearing from nowhere. Report. Thex roared. Ships, Commander. Hundreds of ships. They were cloaked, hidden throughout the system. They're decloaking now. Vorel's voice carried an emotion. Thex had never heard from his second fear. Commander, these ships aren't primitive. They're reading as modern capital vessels, carrier groups, battle cruisers, destroyers. Impossible. But the sensors didn't lie. Where there had been empty space moments before, now floated a fleet, and not just any fleet. The ship directly ahead of the Crush formation was enormous. 2 kilometers of angular armor and weapon ports. Its hull bore markings in human writing, and a single name, Indomitable. A transmission came through. Audio and visual. A human female appeared on the screen. She wore a dark blue uniform with markings suggesting high rank. Her face was calm, almost amused. Commander Thex of the Crush Dominion, she said in perfect galactic standard. I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Command. You have entered this system with hostile intent. You have 1 minute to power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. This is your only warning. Thex's blood boiled hot. You dare threaten me. Your primitives, chemical rockets and radio waves. Your silence proved your weakness. Admiral Chen's smile grew colder. Our silence proved you make assumptions too quickly. 50 years ago you would have crushed us easily. We knew it, so we stayed quiet and learned from you. We watched. We listened. We built. And you never suspected because you were too busy laughing. I won't be lectured by an ape. All ships. Attack formation. Destroy them. The Crush fleet surged forward, weapons charging. 200 warships that had conquered a dozen star systems. 200 vessels crewed by warriors who had never known defeat. They made it exactly 30 seconds before the human trap closed. The satellites that the Crush had dismissed as primitive suddenly activated. Not weapons but powerful jamming systems that disrupted Crush targeting sensors. At the same moment, human ships launched fighters, small craft that moved faster than anything the Crush had encountered. They swarmed around the Crush formation like angry insects, their weapons striking at engine clusters and shield generators. Thex watched in horror as his tactical display dissolved into chaos. His ships were firing, yes, but hitting nothing. The human vessels danced through their plasma volleys, their movements too fast, too precise, and when the humans fired back, their weapons struck true. The first Crush destroyer exploded in a ball of fusion fire, then another, then 3 more in rapid succession. How? Vorel whispered. How are they doing this? Admiral Chen's voice came through again, calm and educational. We studied your tactics for 50 years, Commander. Every battle you fought we watched. We know how you move, how you think, what patterns you favor. You're predictable. We're not. A human battle cruiser materialized directly above the Fist of Dominion, appearing from a jump point that shouldn't have been possible at such close range. Its weapons locked onto the Crush flagship. You wanted our system, Chen continued. You wanted our resource. You thought we were too weak to resist. But you made a mistake, Commander. You came to our home. The human ship fired. Not plasma weapons or missiles, but something else. Railguns that accelerated solid projectiles to impossible velocities. The rounds punched through the Fist of Dominion's shields like they were paper, tearing into the armor beneath. Thex stumbled as his ship shook. Alarms screamed. Fires erupted on multiple decks. Around him, his fleet was dying. Crush warships exploded or went dark, their crews dead or dying. The humans weren't just winning, they were dominating. Retreat, Thex ordered. All ships, retreat. But the humans had surrounded them. Every escape route led to more human vessels. They'd been herded, Thex realized, positioned exactly where the humans wanted them. This wasn't a battle. It was an execution. We surrender, Vorel screamed into the communication system. We surrender. The human attacks stopped instantly. Not gradually, not with final volleys, but immediately. Every human ship ceased fire in the same moment, responding to orders with perfect discipline. Admiral Chen appeared on screen again. Commander Thex, You will power down your weapons and lower your shields. You and your crew will be taken prisoner and held for trial by the Galactic Council. Your ships will be seized, and you will carry a message back to the Council. What message? Vex asked, his voice barely a whisper. That humanity is no longer silent. The battle, if it could be called that, had lasted 7 minutes. Of 200 Crush warships, 143 were destroyed. The rest were disabled or surrendered. Not a single human ship was lost. A handful had minor damage. As Crush warriors were marched onto human prison transports, as their weapons were catalogued and their wounded treated by human medical teams, Vex understood the magnitude of his failure. He'd thought humans were weak because they were silent. He'd mistaken patience for cowardice. The galaxy had mocked Earth for 50 years. They'd laughed at the quiet planet that refused to join them. They'd called humans primitive, backwards, irrelevant. They wouldn't laugh anymore. Aboard the Indomitable, Admiral Chen watched the last Crush ship power down its weapon. Around her, the bridge crew worked efficiently, coordinating the capture of prisoners and the salvage of enemy vessels. Young men and women who had trained their entire lives for this moment. Send the battle recording to the Galactic Council, she ordered. Make sure every species sees it. I want them to understand exactly what happened here. Yes, Admiral. Chen allowed herself a small smile. The humans hadn't wanted war. They'd prepared for it. Yes, but they'd hoped to avoid it. The Crush had forced their hand, but perhaps that was for the best. Now the galaxy would know the truth. Earth wasn't weak, Earth wasn't primitive, and Earth was definitely not staying silent anymore. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in absolute chaos. Representatives from 100 species shouted at each other, their translation devices struggling to keep up with the volume of competing voices. In the center of the chamber, a holographic display showed the Battle of Sol on repeat, human ships tearing through the Crush fleet with terrifying efficiency. Ambassador Jakara watched the scene with a mixture of vindication and dread. She'd warned them. She'd told them that humanity's silence was suspicious. But no one had listened. High Chancellor Vex called for order, his ancient voice somehow cutting through the noise. Silence. We will have order. The chamber gradually quieted, though tension filled the air like static electricity. The facts are clear, Vex said, his crystalline form pulsing with light. The Crush Dominion attacked Earth's system without Council authorization. They have been defeated. 143 ships destroyed, 57 captured, over 30,000 Crush warriors dead, or imprisoned by a species that was supposed to be primitive, added the Seth representative, their crystalline body flashing angry red patterns. A species that was supposed to be using chemical rockets and radio communication. Someone explained to me how they built a fleet capable of destroying the Crush. They lied to us, snarled the Morvani delegate. They pretended to be weak while building weapons in secret. This is deception of the highest order. Jakara rose from her seat. They didn't lie. We assumed. We looked at 50-year-old data and convinced ourselves that nothing had changed. We mocked them for being silent instead of asking ourselves why they chose silence. You defend them. The Morvani snapped. I state facts. The humans received our invitation 50 years ago. We offered them nothing except subordinate membership in our council. We showed them a galaxy where strength matters and the weak are exploited. Then were surprised when they chose to become strong before joining us. Before anyone could respond, the holographic display changed. A new transmission was coming through, broadcast on frequencies the Council used for official communications. The image resolved into a human female, middle-aged with dark skin and gray streaks in her hair. She wore formal attire and stood before a flag that combined symbols from Earth's various nations. Greetings to the Galactic Council, she said, her voice steady and diplomatic. I am President Amara Okafor of the United Earth Government. For 50 years, you've waited for our response to your invitation. Today, I provide that response. The chamber fell silent. Every representative leaned forward, desperate to hear what the humans would say. 50 years ago, humanity was divided. We fought each other over borders, resources, ideologies. We poisoned our own world and questioned whether we deserved to survive. Then you contacted us, and we realized the truth. In a galaxy of advanced civilizations, Earth was a child playing with match. Okafor paused, letting her words sink in. You offered us membership in your council, but your message made something clear. You weren't offering partnership. You were offering us the chance to be the newest, weakest, poorest members of your organization. You expected us to be grateful for scraps from your table. The Morvani delegates started to object, but Vex silenced them with a gesture. So we made a choice, Okafor continued. We wouldn't respond until we could speak from a position of strength. We unified our world, We studied your technology. We built our own fleet, and we waited. You deceived us. Someone shouted. No, Okafor said firmly. We were silent. Silence isn't deception. You chose to interpret our silence as weakness. That was your mistake, not our crime. She gestured, and new images appeared on the display. Detailed scans of Crush homeworlds, tactical analysis of Morvani defense grids, trade route maps for the Seth systems, data on every major species in the Council, all clearly gathered over years of careful intelligence work. We know where you live, Okafor said quietly. We know your military capabilities. We know your economic systems. We know your politics, your alliances, your rivalries. We've prepared contingencies for conflicts with any Council member. We did this because we learned from you that the galaxy doesn't reward weakness. The chamber erupted again. Species that had felt superior to humanity moments ago now felt exposed, vulnerable. The humans hadn't just built a fleet. They'd built an intelligence network that rivaled anything the Council possessed. Are you threatening us? Vex asked, his voice carrying warning. No, Okafor replied. I'm offering you context. You need to understand that humanity isn't the primitive species you dismissed. We're a major power now, whether you acknowledge it or not. But we don't seek domination. We seek partnership on equal terms. She paused and her expression softened slightly. We've also studied your medical technology, your agricultural methods, your scientific knowledge. We've learned much from you and we're grateful. In the spirit of that gratitude, we offer a gift. New data streams flooded the Council network. Medical research primarily focusing on cellular regeneration and disease treatment. The formulas were human innovations, improvements on alien concepts that could save billions of lives across multiple species. We share this freely, Okafor said. No cost, no obligation. This is what humans can contribute to the galactic community. Not just weapons, but healing. Not just strength, but knowledge. Jakara felt warmth spreading through her body, a sign of approval in her species. This was a masterstroke of diplomacy. Show your teeth, then offer your hand. What do you want from us? Vex asked. Respect, Okafor said simply. Not fear, not submission. Respect. We want to join the Galactic Council as equals. We want trade agreements that benefit both parties. We want to explore the galaxy and meet new species. We want to contribute to galactic civilization. And if we refuse, the Morvani delegate asked, then we'll continue alone, Okafor replied. We don't need your permission to exist, but we'd prefer cooperation to isolation. The choice is yours. The transmission ended, leaving the Council chamber in stunned silence. High Chancellor Vex looked around at the gathered representatives. We will vote, he said, not on whether to allow humanity into the Council, but on whether to offer them full membership with all rights and responsibility. The debate lasted for hours. Some species argued for rejection, claiming humans were dangerous and unpredictable. Others pushed for immediate acceptance, seeing opportunity and alliance with this new power. Still others wanted restrictions, limitations on human expansion and military growth. Jakara spoke passionately in favor of full membership. We made assumptions about humanity and paid for it with Crush blood. Do we want to make the same mistake twice? The humans have shown both power and restraint. They destroyed the Crush fleet but offered mercy to survivors. They revealed their intelligence network but also shared medical knowledge. They seek partnership, not conquest. I say we accept. When the vote came, it was closer than Jakara expected, but ultimately pragmatism won. Humanity was offered full Council membership with only minor restrictions on military expansion for the first decade. In her office on Earth, President Okafor received the news with quiet satisfaction. 50 years of silence, 50 years of preparation. And it had worked. Humanity had gambled that they could build strength faster than the galaxy would lose patience. They'd been right. Admiral Chen stood beside her, looking out at the night sky. It's not over, she said. Some of them will never trust us. Some will plot revenge for the Crush defeat. We've made enemies today. Yes, Okafor agreed. But we've also made allies. And more importantly, we've made a statement. Earth is no longer a world to be ignored or exploited. We're players in galactic politics now. We stayed silent for so long. Okafor smiled. We were never truly silent, Admiral. We were listening. And now, finally, we have something worth saying. 1 year had passed since humanity spoke to the galaxy, and the universe had changed. Dr. James Okonkwo stood in the observation dome of New Horizons Station, humanity's first permanent settlement beyond the solar system. The station orbited a planet humans had named Promise, a world in a binary star system 40 light-years from Earth. The planet itself wasn't habitable for humans, but its moons held water and minerals. More importantly, it represented something greater than resources. It represented humanity's future among the stars. "Still impressive every time I see it," said Ambassador Jakara, floating into the dome. Her species adapted well to low gravity, and she'd become a frequent visitor to human installations over the past year. "We owe much of this to you," Okonkwo said. "Your advocacy in the council made our expansion possible. I simply told the truth. Others chose to listen or not." Jakara joined him at the window. "How many colonies now?" 12 permanent settlements, 37 mining outposts, and 6 deep space research stations. "We share 3 systems with Ventali partners and 2 with the Quinn." Okonkwo smiled. "A year ago, we'd never left our solar system. Now we're scattered across 50 light-years of space. Your species adapts quickly. We have to. The galaxy doesn't wait for slow learners." Below them, construction drones assembled the skeleton of a new habitat ring. Human and Ventali engineers worked side by side, combining their technologies to create something neither species could have built alone. It was a scene repeated across multiple systems now, as humanity integrated into the galactic community. But integration hadn't been smooth. Admiral Sarah Chen reviewed reports in her office aboard the Indomitable, now stationed in orbit around Earth. The news was trade agreements with 17 species had brought new technology and resources to humanity. Medical exchanges had saved millions of lives across multiple worlds. Cultural programs had introduced humans to alien art, philosophy, and science. But there were problems too. The crushed Dominion had been humbled but not destroyed. Their territory had been reduced by council decree, and their military limited. War crimes trials were ongoing, with Commander Thex facing execution for the unauthorized invasion. But many Crush still burned with resentment, and intelligence suggested extremist factions were planning revenge. The Morvani had attempted to sabotage human trade routes twice in the past 6 months. Subtle actions that were difficult to prove but impossible to ignore. They saw humanity as dangerous upstarts, who had risen too quickly. And then there were the Hygara, a species that had remained neutral in all council politics for centuries. They'd sent cryptic warnings about forces beyond the known galaxy that took notice when civilizations grew too powerful too quickly. Chen didn't know if this was genuine concern or veiled threat. "Admiral," her communications officer called. "Priority message from President Okafor." Chen accepted the transmission. Okafor's face appeared on her screen, and the president looked tired. The past year had aged her visibly. "Sarah, we have a situation. The exploration vessel Pathfinder has encountered an unknown species in the Kepler. Captain Rodriguez is requesting instructions." Chen felt her pulse quicken. First contact with a species unknown to the Council was a momentous event, one that could define humanity's place in galactic politics. "What do we know?" "Very little. They're biological, roughly our size, and their technology appears pre-spaceflight but advanced, similar to Earth 70 years ago. The Pathfinder detected their radio signals and investigated." "Does the Council know?" "Not yet. I wanted your input first." Okafor leaned forward. "This is our chance to show what humanity has learned. The Council treated us as primitives, and we resented it. Now we find a species in the same situation. How do we approach them?" Chen considered carefully. "Not with arrogance, not with demands. We offer information and let them choose." "My thoughts exactly. I'll send instructions to Captain Rodriguez." On the bridge of the Pathfinder, Captain Maria Rodriguez studied the planet below. Lights covered its surface, indicating industrial civilization. Radio and television broadcasts filled the electromagnetic spectrum. Satellites orbited the planet, primitive but functional. It reminded her of Earth before first contact, a world on the edge of reaching for the stars, unaware of the vast galaxy surrounding them. "Prepare a message," she ordered. "Audio and visual. Keep it simple." Her crew worked quickly, assembling a transmission in the species' dominant language, which their computers had analyzed from broadcast signals. "People of this world." Rodriguez spoke into the recorder, knowing her words would be translated. "My name is Maria Rodriguez. I represent humanity, a species from a planet called Earth. We come in peace. We know you're not alone in the universe because we too discovered we weren't alone. This can be frightening, but it doesn't have to be. You have time. You have choice. We offer information freely, with no demands or expectations. If you wish to communicate, we'll listen. If you wish us to leave, we'll respect that decision. The galaxy is vast, and you're part of it, but you decide when and how you join." The message transmitted. Now they would wait. Back on Earth, a young girl named Maya Chen, daughter of the Admiral's younger brother, sat in her classroom learning about the galaxy. Her teacher, a hologram representing dozens of species, taught about the great civilizations that filled the star. Maya's classmates included not just human children but also young Ventali and Quinn, participating remotely from their homeworlds. This generation, Maya's generation, would grow up knowing the galaxy was full of life. They wouldn't fear the stars but embrace them. They'd make friends with alien children and learn from alien teachers. They'd build a future where species cooperated instead of competed. It wasn't perfect. There were still conflicts, still prejudices, still dangers, but it was better than what had come before. In the council chambers, now including a human delegation, Ambassador Jakara watched as representatives debated resource allocation for joint projects. Humans sat among them, equals rather than supplicants. Their voices carried weight, their votes mattered. High Chancellor Vex approached her after the session ended. "You were right about them," he said quietly. "I doubted, but you were right. They surprised everyone." Jakara replied, "Including themselves, I think. Do you believe they'll continue to be peaceful? Power corrupts. They've risen so quickly." Jakara thought about the question carefully. Humans are complicated. They can be violent. Yes. But they can also be remarkably compassionate. They understand suffering because they've suffered. They value freedom because they've fought for it. Will they always be peaceful? No. No species, but I believe they'll try. And that's all we can ask. Months passed. The Pathfinder received a response from the newly discovered species. They wanted information. They wanted to learn. Captain Rodriguez began the slow process of cultural exchange, sharing knowledge about the galaxy while respecting their autonomy. On promise, the joint human-Ventali colony celebrated its first harvest. Crops engineered to grow in alien soil produced food that both species could eat. It was a small thing, but it represented something larger: cooperation, understanding, hope. Admiral Chen retired from active military service, satisfied that Earth's defenses were strong and its future secure. She spent her final years teaching at the newly established Academy of Interspecies Relations, sharing what humanity had learned with the next generation. Dr. Okonkwo continued his research, now collaborating with scientists from a dozen species. Together they pushed the boundaries of physics, engineering and biology. The technologies they developed would transform the galaxy. President Okafor served her final term and stepped down, replaced by a younger leader who had grown up during the years of silence. The new president had different challenges but continued the careful diplomacy that had served humanity well. And across the galaxy, in 1,000 different places, humans and aliens worked together. They built stations and cities. They explored unknown regions of space. They made art and music that blended their cultures. They argued and sometimes fought, but more often they cooperated. Humanity had stayed silent for 50 years, while the galaxy mocked them. They'd been called primitive, cowardly, irrelevant. They'd endured the contempt of species that assumed silence meant weakness. But they'd been wrong. Humanity's silence had been strategic. They'd listened when they couldn't speak. They'd learned when they couldn't act. They'd built strength when others expected surrender. And when they finally spoke, when the human fleet finally took flight, the galaxy learned a lesson it wouldn't forget. Silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's simply wisdom waiting for the right moment. In her quarters on New Horizon Station, Maya Chen, now a young woman studying xenobiology, looked out at the stars. She'd grown up in a galaxy that knew humanity existed, that respected humanity's place, that accepted humans as equals. She didn't remember the years of silence. For her generation, humanity had always been among the stars, and that was exactly what her grandmother's generation had fought for. Not glory, not conquest, but the simple right to exist in the galaxy without fear, to explore without permission, to stand equal among the ancient species that had dismissed them. The galaxy had mocked Earth for staying silent. They weren't mocking anymore.